Hey, everybody, welcome back. It has been more weeks than usual, but I am back with Robert Phoenix, and we're getting ready to Matrix Mash. And before we start, I just want to let people know, please subscribe to the channel where you are seeing this, because right now this is the channel where this Matrix Mash will be appearing. So make sure you subscribe to this one. And now on with the show. Robert, there is not only a lot of matrix to mash, but several matrices between each and every matrix that also need mashing. I don't think we can find a hammer big enough. What say you, my friend?
Well, before I jump into that, I just want to, take a moment, and I know he's not dead or anything, but I just want to take a moment to honor Randy and the work that he's put in for a very, very long time. And, you and I had a relationship and a connection outside of Randy, but without Randy, you and I probably wouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
And I didn't always agree with Randy 100%. Not everybody agreed with me 100%, but I totally respect his intellect, his ferocity, his desire to back a position, even if it was an unpopular one. And he's done a tremendous amount of really, really great work. And I know he's going to be doing some other things and coming back. But I just wanted to, I haven't gotten to say any of that to him. So if he somehow sees this, or I know a lot of off-planet people will see this, but I want to just recognize Randy, and I hope you have a good break and that you come back stronger or do something different and evolve and, just shine brighter. So that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Randy, there's no doubt, like, he opened up a window to another part of the picture that hadn't really been talked about in the alternative media at the time that he started talking about it. And that was sort of this crossover space between sort of the metaphysical or the paranormal and that sort of mind control or intelligence kind of stuff. And he created a space that didn't exist there before. And we'll miss him, and we look forward to seeing what he's doing. And he definitely opened up all sorts of windows and opportunities for me. So I'm greatly appreciative. And yeah, absolutely. I was super excited. I remember when I got to bring you on as a guest, I was like, I know someone that you probably don't know, Randy, and we can bring him on the show as a guest. And then we had that magical show, and the rest was history. So
that night was crazy, man. That was such a crazy night.
Yeah.
That was 9/10. That was 9/10/2016, right? So it was on a Saturday night. It was 9/11.
That was actually the second time you were on, I think.
Was that the second time?
Yeah, because we had a couple, right? We had several shows like within a 6-month period. I think that was the second time you were on, but I'm pretty sure that was the second time.
That was the time I was riding my bike around East Austin.
Yeah.
And you were like, Robert, we have a show. I'm like, oh, okay. I got my cell phone. Let's see if we can do that. That was a trippy night, because that's a lot of Trump stuff happened then, right?
Yeah.
So I said that I would not be surprised if Hillary dies.
Yeah.
And then that whole weird thing happened at the 9/11 memorial.
Yeah.
And then I said, when Trump's president.
Yeah.
And Randy said, "Oh, you're predicting he's going to win?" I said, "Yeah, he's going to win.
Yeah.
He's going to win."
I remember.
That was a trippy night, and I just remember riding my bike around East Austin. It was very interesting. It was Saturday night.
I think that was the first hour, and then the second hour we got into the Stranger Things, and that was when we started.
The Stranger Things stuff.
Right? Yeah, and then that's where we got into starting the quilt that we continued to sew related to prion disease and the gadget sets and all sorts of other weird connections that pop up when we start talking about Stranger Things.
Yeah, and there was that movie. I always forget the name of that movie, but it was with Sam Shepard and that Mike Shannon guy, and he pulls this kid out who's got some kind of like superpower from this Christian cult.
We talked about that too. We talked about Midnight Special.
Midnight Special.
Yeah, we talked about that. I was trying to think about that the other day, and I'm also starting to tie some aspects of that Midnight Special to some of the conversation that I and you have been having with the Krimis about Astana. Because a lot of the stuff we see in Astana looks very much like the future city that they shipped him, that he went off to at the end.
Yeah, so if people, all right, it's worth seeing. But one of the things that is a theme in that movie, and I don't want to say a lot about it, but there's this boy who's gifted, and he's from some other place, and he believes that there is another world above ours,
Mm-hmm.
and that actually sort of manifests a bit in the movie,
Mm-hmm.
right? But there's another world above ours, which is, not these are things that other people have talked about, right?
Well, this goes into a lot of the conversation that's popped up in my circles over the last few weeks. There was an article a few weeks back about that they discovered a portal to a parallel universe near Antarctica where time runs in the opposite direction. And so we got into a really deep conversation about that at Conspiracy Cocktail a couple of weeks ago. And we were looking at it through the lens of that article, sort of, but also through the trailer for the new movie Tenet, which is by Christopher Nolan. And it's kind of similar to Inception. And it's also about the same thing. It's kind of about parallel universes where time runs in opposite directions and sort of being able to get out using inversion, get out ahead of events. Right, on a certain level, or sort of be able to control reality because you're aware of what's coming based on the opposite time flow in the parallel universe, kind of thing. And then yesterday or the day before, there was an article in I can't remember if it was in Drudge or Zero Hedge about that. Something about what if the moon is just a reflection of a giant Earth? Oh, and they also found a parallel moon and sun, out in space. Did you see that? There's like a picture of like a reflective.
Yeah, no, that's something that Crow 77 talks about.
Yes, he does. Yeah.
That the moon is just this kind of hologrammatic projection.
But this was a little different. This was about the whole that there was a reflection of Earth and a whole bunch of other stuff right there. We watched a weird movie the other day called Another Earth, too. Mm-hmm. That was by the same girl who did OA, Britt Marling, right? And there literally is, like, all of a sudden there appears another Earth in their sky, and they're living with this other Earth, and there's, like, ways you can win trips to go to this other Earth, and, it's all related to time kind of issues and stuff, too. And if there's another you there that hasn't had the thing that's happened to them there yet that have happened here, blah, blah, blah. So this is a big theme. But we got into that in a pretty interesting way back that night. Guys, go check out that show.
The thing that I don't think we really, maybe I'm wrong, but the thing that really interested me about Stranger Things and Midnight Special being right around the same time, having the same theme around these specialized kids, right?
Mm-hmm. And other worlds, specialized kids in other worlds that are right close by.
And that in Stranger Things, we have this reality, but then you have the upside down, mm-hmm. which is the world below, right? In some ways, right? And then mm-hmm. in Midnight Special, there's another world above this one. And when you put the two together, you had this interesting kind of model mm-hmm. of as above, so below, but in different, and one would make a leap that the above part of Midnight Special was probably more benevolent than mm-hmm. what was going on in the upside down, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that was an interesting, we were connecting lots of dots that night. That was
a good one. Maybe I'll put the link to those shows in the, I'll put the link to those shows in the
But there's no video, though, because it was just me talking on my phone.
There's no video. Yeah. So people can listen to it while they're on a bike ride. All right. So, Robert, now that we've done a little reflecting, oh, good Lord. So, we're in a whole different, we kind of had our COVID mash last time we talked, and we have a whole new distraction that's happened since the distraction from the previous distraction.
Oh, unlike, COVID, this is a deadly distraction.
Yeah.
Like, this is really, there's some things that are happening now there are people that died during the coronavirus stuff. Okay? They died. How they died, how it's classified that they died, that's a whole different discussion. And if you followed a lot of the stuff that I was covering and things that you and I were talking about, and maybe you were talking about, like, the use of these ventilators were just murdering people. Mm-hmm. These ventilators were just murdering people. Mm-hmm. They were like death machines. and we have this whole like series of crimes going on theoretically with these elder care centers in New York, and they were almost like, final solution centers. I mean, so those things were real. There were people things were happening to these people, and horror stories coming out of these hospitals, not necessarily because of COVID or Corona, but by how they were treating it and dealing with it. What we're seeing now is we're teetering on some very dark stuff, really, really dark material.
So what do you think is going on? Like, do you think so one of the things that's happened under the cover of all of these protests, riots, lootings, whatever these things are, is that almost everything that was ever said about the COVID-19 has been walked back, right? All of the things that the WHO said, right? All the statements about the ineffectiveness of hydroxychloroquine, all the statements about the necessities of masks and social distancing and the severity of it, all of those things were walked back, but there's been almost no attention to that because over the course of overnight, we went from the entire front page of every news site being filled with stories about COVID to all of the stories being about protest riots, looters, blah, 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 and maybe one story way, way down at the very, very bottom about coronavirus or whatever, right? So do you think that these are separate issues, completely related issues, one to cover the other, that they're like what we were sort of overall talking about here, like each has its own matrix, and then the really dangerous spot is in the way the matrices interact with each other? Like, what do you think is going on? Was one the setup for the other?
So I feel like we're in a kind of a mass trauma ritual right now. And,
initiation, yeah.
We go back to like the early Corona stuff where we're being shown, really bizarre things happening in China to people. Like just dropping down and how much of that stuff is real now, I don't even know.
It seems so long ago, doesn't it?
I can't, and when I first saw it, I'm thinking, wow, this is kind of heavy, right? I mean, this is kind of heavy. This is a thing, and getting into Charles Lieber and his role and the Fort Detrick and then the research center in Manitoba, and then the Chinese who were escorted out of that research center. I mean, all of a sudden you begin to put a lot of these dots together. So in my world, there's a there. So, but what's the there, right? Like, what was Lieber and these people working on? And he's got this whole thing with nano arrays and nano sensors. I mean, is this a nano kind of a nano biosynth thing? I mean, so but we started. That's where I got in, but nobody else. Well, here, what we saw was the visceral effect of what they were showing us, which was on some level traumatizing, right? On some level. And then we get the whole cruise ship thing.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Which is a very Piscean kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Theme. Very, very Piscean. Neptune, Pisces. And we've been dealing with a lot of that because Neptune and Pisces deals with things like contagion and addiction and victims. So astrologically, there was a lot of that going on. A lot of that was happening through the month of Pisces. Like 3/11 is ultimately when they decided to shut down the NBA. Right? That was 3/11. 3/11 is the same day, theoretically, that the Fukushima earthquake hit in 2011. So 3/11 has this interesting resonance.
Isn't there a group called 311 too?
Yeah, there is a group called 311. I think they're from Kansas City, Missouri, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So they the whole thing, with the ships, it was getting very bizarre. The first case supposedly of COVID is in Washington State, right? And it's supposed to be this 26-year-old, but then 46-year-old. Now it turns out he's 60. And then they've got all these cases now that are happening at, I think it was like Sunrise or some kind of elder care center, right? But it's important because it's Washington State. Why? That's Bill Gates territory.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really where our attention is right now, right? Mm-hmm. With Antifistan or Chaz, it's happening again in Washington State. So where we saw this thing happen with COVID, now it happens there. And I feel like the whole coronavirus thing was really kind of a psychological operation and a very dark ritual. And in a way where the mask was telling people to shut your mouth, right? You can't say anything. You can't say anything. Shut your mouth. Stay inside. Follow orders. Meanwhile, they're decimating the economy. People are losing their businesses, which is very real. People have lost their businesses.
So I'm going to pull in something here that I feel like often gets overlooked when people are focusing on Washington, at least in the sort of kind of groups that we're in. And I think actually ties into all of this. There's something else that's from Washington, and I'm curious as to if any way it's interconnected with Bill Gates, and that's Costco. And Costco, what we years ago, like back when there was still like some semblance of meaningful information, passed out on InfoWars. Alex had somebody on the show. I feel like it's that kid who used to come on from Chicago. Sometimes he has like a local radio show in Chicago. I can't remember his name.
Oh yeah, that guy. Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And he came on and he was talking about, and I think there's even something in a documentary he made that like part of the purpose of Costco was to get people trained for like showing their papers, please. Because you have to show your card on the way in and you have to have your receipt checked on the way out. And everything in there looks like warehouse style, very like much like a prison, or like, it would be like in an internment camp or something like that. Nothing is like, decorative or made to look nice or to make the environment pleasant or anything like that, right? And you don't even have shopping bags, or everything is just in recycled boxes and whatnot. And there's rules, right? There's rules for, you get cheap stuff, but you have to obey this rule and that rule, and you can only pay this way and that way, right? That kind of thing, right? And what we immediately witnessed when this all went down is that people rushed towards Costco, right? And all of these mom and pop stores were basically shuttered and went out of business. But Costco was seeing, their business has gone through the roof. And they're starting to enforce things, like they have company-wide changed their policy for going forward about masks. They're not doing it because the city or the state is recommending it. It is now a Costco policy that people have to wear masks to shop in there, right? And, people are, like it's one of the few places that always had, if you got there early enough, you could get toilet paper, you could get the cleaning supplies, you could get paper towels. To this day, even though things have calmed down, you can't get into Costco without waiting in a horrendously long, socially distanced line wearing a mask, right? So Costco is really part of the mind control program, and the way that they've done like their branding and things like that with the Kirkland signature and stuff like that, like they have sort of commandeered, right, other brands and turned it into their own kind of thing, much in the same way that Bill Gates steals intellectual property from others and calls it his own, right? Like,
I think that, I can see the Gates bureau. Trader Joe's does the same thing.
Trader Joe's does the same thing.
But I think the thing that you're touching on that's interesting is really the kind of the architecture and the flow of Costco. It does look very industrial.
Mm-hmm. It's like the Soviet communist architecture.
It has that. There's a type of architecture. It's called brutalism, right?
Yep.
And so Costco kind of falls into the brutalism camp. Mm-hmm. And I think they were the Price Club originally.
Yeah.
And then they became Costco.
Then it was Price Costco, and then it was just Costco.
And then on the other side of that, you got Walmart,
and Sam's,
which is another experience. And Walmart Walmart's roots come from Sam Walton, who is a very shady character, by the way, really shady character. And he essentially ran the Japanese internment camps for the army back in World War II.
Oh, interesting. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, he was it's like he was getting his Costco training.
Yeah.
By sheltering and feeding the Japanese. And he married into money. He was not dumb. He married into money. He's from Missouri. I think he went to the University of Missouri, and he belonged to like an odd secret society at the University of Missouri. It's not talked about very much. That's where his business connections came through. So now you got the Costco thing, and now you've got the Walmart thing, and they both represent certain types of mind control or retail mind control, retail consciousness or unconsciousness, depending upon.
You know what's really crazy? My dad went on a cross-country trip a few years ago, as they do every couple of years. And they stayed on the way back. They stopped for a couple of days in the town where Walmart is headquartered. It's like in Arkansas, I think.
It's called Bentonville.
Bentonville, Arkansas. And they just had an amazing time there. And they sent all these pictures of this hotel that they stayed at. And they went to all of these art galleries and restaurants. Apparently, it's like a really like funky, cool, like place. I mean, I looked at, you know me, I'm a foodie and I like things that look a certain way. I have a certain aesthetic that I kind of like. He's sending me pictures of the art gallery at the hotel and pictures of the hotel and the stuff. I'm like, dude, this looks like stuff that I like. And this is what that whole little town is about. And Walmart is headquartered there, right? Like there's no, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there's a Walmart there or not, right? But I found that fascinating. He's like, this is like one of the coolest little art towns that we've ever been to. We'd be happy to come back. And they love going to little art towns. Isn't that weird?
Well, yeah. I mean, they've got a lot of money.
There's a huge spider outside of the hotel they stayed at. Like it looks like that same spider that's outside of that. I think that's what it is. It's similar to the spider that's outside of Meow Wolf. Do you know what Meow Wolf is?
Oh yeah. The place in New Mexico.
Yeah, which is it's the Burning Man kind of thing, right? And I've been to Meow Wolf. It's kind of interesting what's inside of there, but it looked very similar to that. Mm-hmm. This big spider they had outside. So I don't know if that's kind of a nod to their spider race of beings or the spiders and the owls kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like right. I don't know what it is, but my dad hates Walmart. He's like, he won't go to Walmart. You know what I mean? But there they are in this town where Walmart is headquartered. He's like, this place is amazing. It looks amazing.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Walmart. I mean, I had to use Walmart at times because it's the only game in town out here.
Yeah.
But I avoid it as much as I can now. I don't want to go there. I don't want to experience them. It had a really kind of low-level vibe, and it just got even worse.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you see my show the other day when I had those pictures from Fry's? Did you see that?
No, but I used to work at Fry's.
So I went to the Fry's in.
Are you talking about Fry's Electronics?
Yeah, in
Austin. I used to be a manager at in the cafe at the Fry's Electronics in Austin.
Okay, so Emily, you'd be shocked.
Yeah.
You would be. We went in there because I bought a printer from them. I didn't want to buy it from Amazon. I didn't want to buy it from Walmart. Let me check Fry's. So they had a printer. I went there. 3/4 of the inventory was gone. 3/4 of the inventory was gone. They had maybe 6 employees.
Are you serious? Wow.
I swear to God.
I mean, when I worked there, wow.
It was so dystopic.
When I worked there, I couldn't understand how they made any money with the number of people we had working there. Like we had a lot of people working. I worked there when it first opened. But that isn't, and it was always pretty elegant in there. Like it had marble floors and there was music and whatever. I don't know if they're still doing it, but for a long time, all of the different Fry's had a different theme.
They have different themes. So this one's Austin's music. It's a music theme.
Yeah. The one here, the closest to my house here, the one in Woodland Hills, is Alice in Wonderland, and it's a black and white checkered Masonic floor, and there's like a huge table that's like, way up high so you can't reach it, so you feel small. And then the one over in Burbank has like a space theme. There's like a spaceship, like a UFO crashed into it. Somebody was even talking about this in your chat room. That must have been why. I must have come in after you showed the pictures.
Yeah, San Jose has the Egyptian temple. It's like,
yep.
But one, but Emily, it was just bizarre. It was really
that's weird.
And there may have been maybe 10 or 12 people.
Wow.
Shopping. It was so.
It's so big too. That one is so big.
I was stunned.
Yeah.
So I asked one of the guys who I could find and talk to. So what's happened to you? Where's all your product? They said, oh, we're starting to finally get it back in. We're starting to stock the shelves again. I said, well, what happened? He said, we changed our business model. And he said, normally we would get these containers from China. They'd go to California. They drop the stuff in California to the California stores, and then the containers would just keep going east, right? Mm-hmm. Well, they weren't getting anything. They were not. So it was either a supply chain issue. It was that the California stores were taking the product first.
Yeah.
And here's the third piece that is something that people may want to wrap their head around a little bit, is that the product is getting stolen. Like, it is not making it to wherever it needs to go. And I bought a freezer from Walmart, like online. It never got to me. Never got to me.
Huh.
Same thing happened with Joan.
Really?
And they said that her freezer got stolen. So there's something odd going on, not just with the supply chain and the breakdown of what's happening in China, but there's something very unusual happening with appliances and goods in this country.
Huh.
I went down to the Sears store in Kerrville. It's just one of these little stores. They don't really carry any product.
Yeah, I saw it when we were there. It was near the hotel.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking around. So tell me about this washer dryer. And he tells me all about it. He says, yeah, but you won't be able to get that until about July 15th. I'm like, really? Wow. And some of those products you wouldn't be able to get until August. So there's something really weird going on with the supply chain. Mm-hmm. I don't know if things are getting pilfered or stolen. I do know, I've read stories about, there was a guy that bought a freezer, read it online, bought a freezer from Lowe's, and he kept going to check on the freezer. The guy at the store would say, oh yeah, it says it's at the warehouse. It says we got plenty at the warehouse, but we're not getting them. So there's something weird going on sort of the supply side, the supply chain, appliance side, very weird stuff. Like, you cannot get exercise equipment either. Like, if you go online and try to buy exercise equipment, dumbbells, barbells, forget it. Forget it. Pre-coronavirus, I bought some weights. I got 2 25-pound weights sent to me. I paid, with shipping, about $65. Those 2 25-pound weights with shipping now would cost you close to $200.
Yeah, we noticed the same thing when we were trying to get a hot tub, like an inflatable hot tub for the backyard, and those all disappeared pretty quickly. I did just get a piece of exercise equipment, like one of those like ab roller things, like the wheel with the bar through it, and that came pretty quickly and was a normal.
Oh, you can get some of the minor stuff, but if you know, and even if you go to Costco and try to buy a rowing machine.
Yeah. Well, because gyms are never, like, no one's ever going to want to go to the gym again because they're going to have all these weird rules. Right. So it's like, I mean, I don't think gyms are open here yet. Right. But like, I already decided on my own, like, I'm not wearing a mask or gloves to work out. Like, like.
Yeah, I mean, that canceled my gym membership. I mean, I just like.
I'm not wearing a mask or gloves. Like, I actually think it'd be kind of cool if you scheduled your workout so there weren't as many people at the gym, because I hate going there when it's super busy and not being able to use the equipment that I want to use. So, like, if they moved to a model where you had to schedule your workout, right? And most people, wipe down the equipment after they use it anyway. Those things, okay. But no, I'm not wearing a mask or gloves to exercise. It's not healthy for you under any conditions, really, to be wearing a mask and gloves, and certainly not when you're exercising. And so, people, I mean, we've been working out at home, you know what I mean? So I'm assuming that that's, even people who are buying the dumb mask bullshit and all that kind of crap, I don't think anybody wants to exercise at the gym wearing a mask and gloves. I mean, maybe there's a few people. I don't think so either.
But this whole gym thing is not uniform, because we went by Planet Fitness and there were people coming out of there without any masks. So I don't know what the sort of the company call is on the mask stuff, but I know here in this town, the main gym is run by the hospital, and you're not getting in unless you got gloves and masks. So, but there's something weird going on with the supply side now. Fry's did say that they're going to work with different distributors, and they're going on consignment now. So they're going to, get stuff on, 30, 60, 90-day terms, which is actually kind of a better business model in a lot of ways.
Yeah, well, that was the business model they had when I worked there was part of the reason they could sell things for so inexpensive was because of how their business model was. They bought things in bulk, right? And so this way, they're probably not going to be able to sell things for quite as cheap as they used to, but they're not going to have to fork out as much money sort of in advance as they used to. So it probably is a safer business model. What do you think is happening, though? Do you think this is part of just being at war with China? Or do you think that this is some cartel shit, or and this can delve into maybe some other places I want to go, and even back to what I was describing about these parallel worlds with inverted timelines running opposite directions. Do you think it's possible that things are disappearing across realities, that we are not in the same reality every day, or that there is some sort of knowledge, magic, or technology that has been deployed here that are allowing people to move in and out of realities and making sort of information and even items and memories disappear along with them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's entirely possible. We certainly are living in kind of a Philip K. Dickian universe, and I don't think I've ever seen a paradigm flip and change so quickly. I mean, the things that have happened in the last 4 or 5 months from an acceleration standpoint are mind-blowing. It's almost like they're just completely eradicating everything that's ever happened, and on a number of different levels, right? Like there's this series. There was a woman who wrote for Medium, and she got fired because she listed all the companies that have supported Black Lives Matter. And one of the companies that support Black Lives Matter is NASCAR. And there's going to be this guy, Bubba Wallace, he's going to be driving a Black Lives Matter NASCAR, which is, it's just bizarre.
Well,
I mean, and look, you want to drive a stupid, if you want to drive with a BLM wrap on your rig, more power to you, right? You have to understand, this is NASCAR. It comes from a really different kind of place, really different tradition. NASCAR had no problem with the Confederate flag, not anymore. You cannot fly the Confederate flag. So they've literally reinvented NASCAR overnight. Same goes for almost all professional sports, with the exception of Major League Baseball, who have not decided to go all in on BLM.
Yeah.
But the NFL has, and what I've seen with the NFL is crazy. It's mind-boggling.
The NFL, the NBA, all of these. I mean, I'm even in the
NBA. You just do that. That's how the NBA rolls, right?
Yeah.
But the NFL is just—it's totally mind-boggling.
Well, and the shit that they did with the soccer player with the
Yeah. Jay and I talked. This guy, the Serbian guy, played for the LA Galaxy.
Isn't it interesting though? I did.
We got to tell the story though, so people know the story.
Okay, so tell the story. Well, first, I just want to point out in the middle of the story, the people who've been showing any like kind of either opposition or being kind of caught in some of these funny crosshairs are Serbian. Like, I can't remember the name of the guy, but there is a Serbian soccer player who plays in Europe, who Darren Williams talked about with me on the show that we just did, and he spoke out about the mind control program of the COVID-19 crap. Novak Djokovic said he's not taking the vaccine, right? And then this guy from, this is sort of a different thing, but, with the thing.
This is his wife.
We'll tell the story, but isn't it funny that there's all these Serbian athletes kind of in this weird, either actual oppositional stance or find themselves in an oppositional stance to this situation. They're all Serbian. I think that's kind of interesting.
So there's a couple things, right? First of all, Serbia was under communist control for a while.
Long time, yeah.
And nobody ever wants to celebrate those times again. So they kind of know what's up.
Yep.
They've been through it. But also, World War I started in Serbia.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and that's where Franz Ferdinand got shot.
Okay, I have heard this part before. Yes, okay.
And there was this guy, Princip. What is the Princip? I forget his last name. He was eating a sandwich, and Franz Ferdinand was cruising by in a car. And the weird thing, right, is that it was all open air car. Like, he didn't want a closed car. Franz Ferdinand married out of his family. He didn't marry a royal. He brought his wife with him, and to show the world how proud he was of her. And he was literally driving into a hornet's nest because there had been tons of agitation in Serbia during that time because they were part of Montenegro and they wanted their own thing. And so there was a lot going on. And the car that Franz Ferdinand was in basically passed this guy, Princip. I forget I'll find out what his last name is before the show's over. And the guy's eating a sandwich, and he notices the car. But the car made like a weird turn and had to turn around. And then when he finally made that weird turn around, he went after him. Those cars really weren't that fast. So he started popping for Prince Ferdinand and his wife.
Gavrilo Princip.
What is it?
Gavrilo Princip.
Gavrilo Princip, that's it. Yeah. He's a tourist, by the way. Anyway, those are the shots that start World War I, and it's in Serbia. That's the Serbian roots.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, and so now let's get to the soccer player.
Oh, what a travesty. So this he's Serbian, so his wife has a Twitter account, and she tweets something in Serbian about how ridiculous
the riot,
the BLM thing is.
Yeah.
And, she really is being critical about it. Well, somebody went into her Twitter feed, and somebody could read Serbian.
Mm-hmm.
And then they reported her like total snitch Karen culture.
Well, remember there was a lot of these color revolutions that use the Gene Sharp Otpor model and the George Soros model that were in those areas in Bosnia, in Kosovo, in all those places. Yep. Absolutely. So they know how to read that stuff. Yeah.
Yep. So that gets back to the general manager of the LA Express or the Galaxy. Mm-hmm. And so they tell the guy, the soccer player, I wish I knew his name. Maybe we can find out his name before we. So you look at that. So they tell him that he has to publicly denounce his wife, which he does. Then they tell him
Alexander Katai.
Then they tell him that he has to apologize, which he does. Then they cut him.
Mm-hmm.
They cut him. So they humiliated this man.
Humiliated him, yeah.
Like now he's got to go. Now maybe his wife understands because maybe communist culture, they did that shit. They would do that shit. Like they would have to get a confessional from you. And what they would do is they would torture like your wife or your son or your daughter. And then they would bring them in and they would have a written statement by them saying that you had done all of these things. By that time, you'd been roughed up pretty well at the same time too. And they had to do it because, they were being abused and traumatized and threatened. And it was like, so now you're admitting to a crime that didn't exist. And you're admitting to a crime that was accused against you by one of your own family. See, this is how fucking evil these minds are. Okay? They're evil. These are satanic minds. And then even if you sign the papers, there's no guarantee you get anything out of the deal, right? No guarantee. Instead of going to Siberia for 20 years, you might get 10.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, so this is a really important kind of example that people really need to understand about the culture we're living in now. You may wind up losing your gig for saying something, but you probably want to be circumspect about. You may lose your gig, right? But what you don't want to do ultimately is have to get on your knee. Everybody's got their limit. Everybody has their breaking point. All right. Everyone has their breaking point, whatever that is. So ultimately, if it does happen under duress, I think certain people should be given a benefit of the doubt, some slack because of the level of duress. When it's not under a level of duress, then we got a problem. But this is how it works. That was Soviet style confessional programming, separating, isolating, shaming.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Your phone confirms it, Robert. Ding, ding, ding. So let's move into this. Okay. Well, first I want to say, when you were talking about how quickly the culture shifted, right? Like at this point, the bulk of humanity is just like a rag doll being whipped around by its hair, right? And
physically and also kind of
psychologically,
it's like, I don't even recognize this place anymore.
So I think, literally this is what they've been doing, right? So they wanted to test and see how reactive or how mind controlled people are, right? Yeah. So they did the fake run on toilet paper, right? And they knew that, okay, that the people are up for carrot stick right now, right? Like if they think there's going to be, right, like they'll just fall for it, right? So that was how they kind of kicked off the introduction of the coronavirus crisis here in the United States, right? Before it was something we were watching either on ships or in China, but here it kicked off with, oh my God, there's going to be no toilet paper, right? Not which people completely missed out on that. Okay, toilet paper is actually not as high of a necessity as people think. There are bidets, you can rinse off in the shower, you can wash towels, right? But literally people were willing to drop everything that they were doing, rush to the store, wait in line for 2 hours, push people, all this kind of stuff, and then buy up every roll of toilet paper that they could find. So they knew that they had people, right? All you have to do at this point is say something and it becomes so, right? So then they've taken us on this exercise of, no, you don't need a mask. Oh, no, now you need a mask. In the course of something like 3 to 5 days, social distancing became a term we had never heard of, went from being a term we'd never heard of to a religion. And that religion is not going away, by the way. That is part of the COVID-19 caca that's here to stay, along with some of the other things, right? So social distancing became the religion. right? And, and then, we're in this for a long period of time. And like everything else, it becomes that if you believe in the virus, right, then you're, a good person and you're socially just and fair and you're on the left and you hate Donald Trump. And if you don't believe in the virus or if you're anti-lockdown, you don't care about people and you're an extreme far right, conspiracy theorist and this, that, and da-da-da, right? Like all those typical, like oversimplified, polarized sort of narrative choices, right? And then we get to this space where like it's starting to get warm outside, like they couldn't really get they didn't ever get as many cases or an extreme of the situation as they seemed to want. Maybe people were starting to get a little bored or whatever. I don't know what was going on, right? And so, and also it was just obvious that so many things that they had said were untrue. Then you have all of a sudden this thing happened in Minneapolis, right? That like is questionable at best. Like I'm against a police officer ever killing anybody unless literally that other person is shooting at them. You know what I mean? Like I'm against that. So I want to be clear on that. But this is a weird kind of situation and a weird video and a weird situation with the person. And then we hear about 1 or 2 days of what seems like some level of normal righteous anger for something. And then it just explodes, right? And then comes time for the next mind control track. So that little period of time was kind of like when we were watching coronavirus in China or on the ships, right? And then all of a sudden comes, like the weekend where they introduced the curfew. And then on that Monday, we get the blacked out Instagram screens, right? And if you didn't black out if you didn't post a black box because posting black boxes is doing something to help, you know what I mean? Then you
it's
are.
Mind control. It's just a mind control operation.
But it's the same as the toilet paper.
Right. It's a mind control operation.
The black box is the toilet paper.
So there are a couple of events that I think are important to kind of go back and look at, prior to all of this. So who was protesting during the coronavirus lockdown?
Right. Well, I mean, mostly people who were,
let's just say mostly white
business owners,
freedom-loving people. Not everybody.
Yeah.
I looked at those crowds. I looked at who was in Sacramento, and who was in Huntington Beach, and who was in Michigan.
Yep.
Right? There's a theme there.
Yep.
Okay. And there was that young doctor, former Marine, talking to the cops in Sacramento. It's an amazing video.
Amazing video, yeah.
And he gets the cops to basically retreat by having them examine their own conscience and motivation.
Yeah.
I think that video terrified the other side, the quote-unquote other side, more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
That video was terrifying.
Well, I think that the combination of that and just the surfers in Huntington Beach being like, we're not standing for this, right? You don't usually see surfers protesting. Yeah.
All of a sudden, there's this, now all of a sudden, right, a group of people who normally don't protest are now starting to band together and protest.
Mm-hmm.
And they're banding together and protesting peacefully. And even though they may have toted some firearms up in Michigan, nothing happened.
Nothing ever happens at that.
Nothing happened. And by the way, that's their theoretical right?
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden now there's this interesting momentum that's going in this direction. Now there's an event that happens that's clearly very troubling. And it's this young guy, Jaden Hayden, who's at one of these elder care centers. He's not even supposed to be there. He's supposed to, be in a hospital. He's got coronavirus, right? He's a young African-American male. He's in the wrong place. And he certainly doesn't have all of his wits about him. And there's video of him, and he's put him up of him beating up old men, right? Mm-hmm. Old white men, okay? There it is. He's beating them up, and he's putting those videos up on Instagram. This is happening just prior to everything. Tucker Carlson takes off and rolls with it, and he starts to look at elder abuse.
Mm-hmm.
inside a lot of these places where, unfortunately, the older members of society wind up going, and the stories are gruesome. They're not great. They're just not good.
Mm-hmm.
They're not good. And I would say, I think you had about 4 examples. And out of those 4 examples, I'd say there might have been 8 people involved, 7 of whom might have been so-called Black, African American, and then women, right? They were women.
Mm-hmm.
So now all of a sudden, like there's something like really dark happening
mm-hmm.
in these places, right? And we're just starting to find out about this stuff. It's like, what's really, like one of them, they were even like getting old people to fight against each other. It's just really weird shit, 12th house stuff, Piscean stuff. And then we have the event in Minneapolis. So the event in Minneapolis is predated by the Ahmaud Arbery event.
Yeah.
Which is in Georgia, about 75 miles outside of Atlanta. And people aren't aware of the Ahmaud Arbery event. He's a young Black American male. He was in a neighborhood about 15 miles away from his home. Apparently, he'd been going there quite a bit. There was a lot of building. He was casing the building sites. All of a sudden, these people were, they're talking to each other. They were alarmed. Hey, there's this guy. He's coming in. He's looking to steal stuff. Right? They had him on video cameras. Scoping. He was not a jogger. They said he was a jogger, but he was not a jogger. Okay, let's be honest and truthful about it. He was casing the neighborhood, been there before. They chase him. They wanted to chase him and get out of our neighborhood. They chased him down with a truck. 2 of the guys. This is where it went wrong. Now again, they're able to carry a gun, right? They can carry a gun. That's their right. They chase them down. They've got 2 shotguns. They got a video camera. They want to put an end to this thing. They want the, whatever's happening to stop. He confronts one of them and tries to wrestle the shotgun away. It's all in video, right? Tries to wrestle the shotgun away. Boom. Now, here's where, okay, we think that that's real. Right? Mm-hmm. We're saying that that's real. And I'm not saying it isn't real. But we're at a time now where we have to question everything. Like, was that a real event? I don't know. I mean, maybe it was a real event. Right? And I don't want to disparage the guy's death, but you don't really want to wrestle for a shotgun either. Like, I know who's going to win. It's either the guy with the shotgun or the other guy with the shotgun that's watching me. Right? So that's just a bad end game scenario. But that thing is set up and ready to go. And let's just say it is real. Let's just for the sake of like validating it. They were sitting on that for 2 months. They had that video for 2 months. So then that video starts to air. And it's starting to make the rounds on the news. And it's starting to make the rounds on sports talk shows. Jason Whitlock starts talking about it. LeBron James starts to politicize it. It becomes a big deal. We haven't even gotten into the Kobe stuff, which kicked the corona.
Right. Yeah.
But so that that's an important event, right? So you have that event, and then you have this other stuff going on where essentially, and I'll just call it, white America decides to get off its ass and go protest because they want their jobs and their businesses back, right? And they're going to go do it peacefully or whatever. They're going to open their barbershop. They're going to open their beauty salon. And they're going to be met with scorn, derision, arrest by these governors, right? So there's a different kind of organizing happening during this phase. You've got the Ahmaud Arbery thing ready to go. Right. And I think that the COVID piece was running out of steam big time. And I knew when that Ahmaud Arbery video was starting to surface, they were going to have another PSYOP ready to go. And hello, let's bring in George Floyd. in, the Chicago gang or the Minneapolis gang.
Right? Well, it was the combination. So like that same weekend as the George Floyd, there was also all the people partying over Memorial Day weekend, right? So they were either going to run with the story of there was a massive, upsurge in COVID, or then obviously this became what it was, right? But something, all right, trying to figure out how I want to sort of approach this thing. So the George Floyd thing, first of all, like, that Ahmaud Arbery thing was kind of weird, right? And just now when you were talking about it, I had a thought that sort of relates to a theory that I kind of want to sort of break out here with you that I've been thinking about. It's been something that stewed in the background for a couple of years, but I didn't understand how it would all work until now. And so, but when you were saying he was going there night after night and they were seeing him on camera, it's like, what was he doing there? Like, he was casing it, but to this point, he hadn't actually taken anything or done anything. He just repetitively is being found there.
So we don't know that, but let's just say maybe he didn't. Okay, but we don't know that.
Okay, there hasn't been any reports that.
What he was doing was he was going to work sites.
Okay.
Right, and because they were building houses, and he was looking for tools and copper and whatever, right? I mean, that's kind of what you can piece together by the video.
Okay, so let's just bookmark that there. Like, he's going to these places repetitively and it's unclear to the observers exactly why, right? It looks like he's casing something, right? But when something does finally happen, it's been almost like it was like a setup, right? Like it was a kind of thing. All right. So then we fast forward to this George Floyd thing starting to happen, right? And, it seems like the normal kind of outrage that we get when this stuff happens for a couple days. And then all of a sudden, pow, right? Shit breaks loose, right? And there's just like these huge things in every city, right? Like all at the sort of same time, almost as if on cue, right? Almost as if it was organized, right? Okay. So that first night that it happens, we're doing Conspiracy Cocktail, and someone in the chat says LA is going on lockdown at 8:00. At this point, it's like 6:55, and we don't have anything to eat. So we were supposed to, usually after Conspiracy Cocktail, we go pick up some food. So we bring Conspiracy Cocktail to an end pretty quickly, and we go and get our food from the place we'd ordered it from, which happened to be in Hollywood. So we get down there, and it's tense. Right? Like it's tense. This isn't where any of the protests or riots are. This is more of like semi-residential neighborhood that has like restaurants and shops and hotels and stuff like that, but not like not like the main area of Hollywood. So we park the car, and there's just cars coming kind of out of nowhere with like people hanging out of the windows, throwing their fists, listening to music, acting like hoodlums. And there's police cars just coming one after another, not regular police cars. The black ones that have like those very LED red and blue lights that almost look like they're from like the Lego movie or some shit like that, right? So that's coming one way. The other cars are going this way. And I go to get in line because LA's still on. At this point, you have to pick up your food outside and whatever, you can't eat in the restaurant. There's a long line at this place, and it's fucking tense. Everybody's socially distanced in the line. I'm the only white person in the line, right? Like there's another, but everybody, like it's tense. But everyone is tense because of what's going on the street. We're all kind of looking at each other and chatting a little bit like, dude, what is this? Like, what is going on, right? And there's some people out in front of their houses, an African-American man, a Latino man. They're being totally friendly, telling everyone to be safe. We're all just kind of there waiting for our food. There's a long line. We're chatting. I go up there. I tell them my order. I pay. They say it'll be just a minute. I step back to the side. And all of a sudden, this girl, very pretty, black, half, like she looked like she was like half black to me, very exotic looking, right? Kind of materializes out of nowhere, walks in front of everybody, cuts to the front of the line, goes up there, says something to the guy, grabs her bag, and is like, that's right, I'm gonna get that money, right? And then and turns and like saunters off across the street, and like it was the weirdest thing. Like it did not fit the what else was going on there. And it was clear to me from the way the interaction went that she was probably working for like Postmates or Grubhub or something like that, like or DoorDash or one of these kinds of things. There was a lot of people there who were doing that, who were picking up orders to deliver them. But there was something about her that was like, this one is not like everyone else here, right? And it stayed with me. And as we've watched the way this has developed and this behavior from people that is just like bizarre, right? This like rioting and looting and appearing out of nowhere, and where are these people coming from, and what's going on here? It started to make me think back to before, like about 5 or 6 years ago, when I was trying to pull my life together but wasn't quite there yet. I started doing some work for Postmates. You know what Postmates is, right, Robert?
What was it?
Postmates. Do you know what Postmates is?
Oh yeah, Postmates. Yeah.
All right, so I started doing some work for Postmates, which for people who don't know, it's kind of like Uber, but instead of giving people rides, you're just doing tasks. You're picking up food and delivering it to people's house, or in some cases picking up like office supplies or whatever, right? So, I went and did the little session you have to do to be able to do that, and then it's an app you put on your phone, and you work when you want, and you don't, it's just like Uber. So I start doing it, and the first couple of times I do it, I'm like, okay, this is all right. Like I'd work for like 4 or 5 hours, make like $100, $125. It seemed like an okay way to start making some money as I try and get my shit together, because I wasn't yet in the space where I could be a responsible person who had a job and was able to be, you could count on me or anything. So this was something I was doing. So first week or two, it's okay. And then it starts to get weird. Like the requests, the things that my phone is telling me to do, because there's no interaction with people like you're
Right.
not going to a job. You do everything through the phone, except for the only time you see people is when you're picking up the food at the restaurant and dropping it off to the customer. But everything is done through the phone. It starts asking me to do things that are offensive to my common sense, right? Like I'll be at point A, right? And I'm delivering food to a person at point B, and they've ordered Chipotle, right? But it's not taking me to the Chipotle that I know is on the way to that person's house. It's taking me way out of the way, right? It wasn't doing any of that stuff the first week or two, right? Mm-hmm. It was like doing stuff like that. Or it would take me away to the person's house that is not the fastest way to get there, right? But there's a GPS that shows you the way it wants you to go. And you don't necessarily have to go that way, but because you're on a time limit with them and they can see, because you're using the app, if you're following their instructions, like you can get dinged for it, right? If you don't do it the way they say, and then you're late. Okay. So like I'm finding myself doing things that I know are stupid because my phone is telling me to, and I don't want to like lose points or get in trouble or whatever. Right. And then there's even aspects to this app where like, so one time I accidentally, like I'm looking for a parking place, I'm at a place, I'm running late, or not running late, but I'm almost to the time limit. And like I'm looking to find something on the phone, and I accidentally push the button that says that I've already delivered it. And when you push that button, everything goes away. So now I can't even see the person's address or apartment number. So then I'm sitting there panicking like it's the end of the world, right? Oh my God, what am I going to do? I mean, I'm fucking delivering a burger to a person. None of this shit matters, right? But I'm worried that like, okay, this person's not going to get their phone, and then I'm going to get marked down on this, and then they'll have paid, and I'm going to not be able to do this. They're going to all this kind of stuff over some fucking ridiculous orders from my phone in an app that doesn't let you go back intentionally, right? They like that kind of panic. It's like getting people's nervous system in tune to obeying their phone and doing it right. Right. So I went through this for like maybe a week or two, where it just every day it seemed increasingly crazier what they were having me do. And I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like there's something wrong with this. And it was about that same time do you remember the Uber killer?
No.
Okay. So there was a guy who was driving Uber, I think in Michigan. Right. And he killed like one of his fares. And he was like, literally the app told me to do it. And that sounds crazy to me. Except for I had this experience where my nervous system and my sense of worth and fear and all that kind of stuff got tied into whatever the app and the algorithm and all that shit is. So it didn't sound...
Yeah. I mean, it seems like, that would be a way for AI to kind of enter in.
Right.
To sort of the daily world of human transactions. And
right.
That goes back to a story that Jay Widener told me. About who's the woman? She's the UFO. UFO.
Oh, Linda Moulton Howe.
Linda Moulton Howe. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Linda Moulton Howe told this story to Jay, and she had become friends with somebody who was fairly high up the chain of command. I think it might have been with the Air Force. And he said that we get orders to do things and we don't know where they come from.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We just get sent these things to do.
Mm-hmm.
And they figured out that some kind of AI was sending them these orders.
Yeah.
Right? So there I would say that there is this other thing going on.
So let me finish my thought here.
This kind of idea of how the Matrix or this reality can shift so quickly because this AI is pushing it along. Like if you're at one of these Fortune 200 companies and you're getting the same kind of memo and the same kind of talking points and the same kind of marketing program and plan that all these other companies are getting, it will happen fast.
Yep.
Very fast.
Okay, so now listen to this. Do you watch Westworld, Robert?
Just a little bit, not much.
In season 3 of Westworld, they're in a dystopian, futuristic Los Angeles, right? And the main character, one of the characters, Caleb, and others in the show, they don't have jobs because they're outliers, right? And the way that they earn money is they earn an app on their phone that gives them like tasks of crimes to commit to go do. And when they do it, they get cryptocurrency. And so I'm watching all of this and I'm thinking, okay, so already you have a lot of people who are doing Uber and Postmates as like either their main or a supplementary form of income, right? But particularly during this period of time where lots of people have lost their jobs, you have more people now who are doing task jobs like that through apps on their phones, right? And the entire food economy in Los Angeles right now is to-go food. You can't eat in a restaurant. So those kind of apps and that kind of service is going crazy, right? So like what if there's something operating through these kinds of apps, whether it's Uber or Grubhub or Postmates, or I'm sure there's others for different kinds of work, or even apps, even like video or role-playing games on their phone, where these people are being cued either consciously or even on a below their consciousness to go and participate in these actions, right? And that they're earning some kind of cryptocurrency or coin or payments for it. Like not the standard way we thought of like, George Soros or whatever paying protesters before. But what if these are literally tasks that they're being commanded and rewarded for doing? And
they've been programmed for that, haven't they? I mean, that's the whole video game kind of basis of reward. You do something, you get a reward for it.
And earning money right now, right? Like earning something, like get that girl was like, I'm going to get me that money right now. You know what I mean? And it was like, I could see, she looked like she was like pumped and ready to go fight someone. So what if her next task after picking up and dropping off this food was go downtown and throw a brick through a window? You're going to get paid for that too.
It could be. I mean, I think we've stepped into a period of very high strange.
And it's also how so many people could coalesce in one area at one time, right? If there's like commands coming through apps, and even if they're apps that are made by people who do these sort of organized protest on demand things, right? Like we all know that they communicate through burner phones, right? Well, like, they think
they use the LG. So the types of phones that they use, there are two phones that they use.
Mm-hmm.
They use the LGs. I think it's the LG 35. That's a phone of choice. And then they use Blackberries.
Mm-hmm.
Blackberries are used by people that have like a higher control.
Intelligence, yeah.
Intelligence. The people in the streets use the LGs, the Lucky Gold Stars.
Okay.
They use them. They also have earbuds.
Mm-hmm.
They're taking directions through the earbuds.
Yep.
They have repeaters. They have repeater stations.
Yep.
Very, very sophisticated.
I saw a lot of these people that we were in line waiting to pick up food with not even the kind of earbuds where you can see that they're Bluetooth, but the ones that are just in their ear like a CIA agent's earpiece.
Right.
That are inside the ear, wired.
Did you see this Millennial Millie? She does some stuff from Alex Jones. Have you seen her latest video?
Oh my God, the one about the sunrise?
So I got into this whole sunrise thing today.
Yeah. Which
is very occult, right? Sunrise is like the dawn of a new day. It's
always the thing with the communist revolutions is they're always using the sun, right?
Dawn of a new day. And I highly recommend people go watch this video because you will understand the level of programming that, okay, so for a while, like if you go back, like the Chinese were the masters of programming. If you go, there's a reason why there's a film called The Manchurian Candidate. Okay. So there's that style of programming, which has to do with torture and trauma and a whole bunch of other stuff. Then there's the social programming. Right. So now we've got essentially Chinese style programming, social programming. We have tech coming in to like push this stuff to a whole new level.
Social credit system.
And the thing that really got me when I watched that Sunrise stuff, and I've known about it for a while, but it was almost cult-like. There was a kind of a cult-like feeling to it, right? It was really, really scary, actually. Really scary. They were creating like a cult-like atmosphere. It was mostly young girls too, by the way.
Yep, young white girls.
14, 15, 16-year-old girls, and they're using very sophisticated training manuals, training modules, where to go, what to do, like, you know, what's your next level action, who are you with? I mean, really, really sophisticated shit. They got a guy, Aaron Berger, you know, he has that company. It's all about asymmetric warfare, asymmetric planning. Like he's their advisor. I mean, this stuff is getting really, really, really deep and really getting into these kids' heads. And so when you talk about having an app or something like that, you know, that might be something that will be on their phone or, you know, again, part of their culture. It's not out of the question.
Yeah, so that there's that, and then there's also, so they're going and there's doing these actions, and whether these actions are protests or, you know, rioters or looters, there's people defending each and every one of those actions, right? Like, you know, and so these people are getting elevated on social media in the same way that a person with a positive social credit score will get, you know, social praise from the establishment, right? So this is like the new, it's like a training model right now, right? Where they're getting incited by an algorithm that is affecting their brains, right? You know, and maybe these algorithms work particularly well with some of the newly deployed technologies, and, you know, and what the new cheap iPhone that's out, or this phone you're talking about, right? Maybe this phone you're talking about comes with a preloaded app on it that is, you know, really designed to frazzle, you know, to activate, you know, some sort of hormone or for aggression or some sort of something in there. This goes back to some.
It's a pretty standard phone. I think that they would have that app probably built into it. I mean, they'll pretty much work off the same carrier, but who knows? Maybe they've dialed something up in that particular phone. You know, but clearly,
I think the point.
Here's what I think. The point that you bring up that I think is important is the feedback loop that they're getting from these events. Okay, and I thought about this. It's like if I was a 15-year-old girl. Or 15-year-old, but it doesn't really matter. But if I was 15 years old and I'd gone through the Sunrise indoctrination and I believed everything about what was going to happen to the earth, I was going to die for the earth, and I was convinced now that racism is connected to global warming, and that was my religion, right? If that was my thing and I participated and did everything that they said during these events, and I looked back and I saw the impact of what had happened and the outcome of those events, that would be really heavy, heavy medicine, right, for a 15-year-old kid to think about, look what we did. Look what we did. We did everything they told us to do. We carried it out to the letter, and Minneapolis is going to defund their police now, right? I mean, that's heavy shit, right?
Yeah.
And you put that up against, like, working at, I don't know, Bed Bath and Beyond as a 16-year-old.
Right. This is the new version of, like, getting good grades, being a cheerleader, having a job, and the perfect boyfriend. Like, this is the new way that people are going to get that same, like, level of attention and praise and boosted self-esteem.
I think there's that in there too, but what we're talking about here is power.
Yeah.
Like, that's power. They're being indoctrinated and initiated into power.
Mm-hmm.
Because the things that they were taught and the things that they did in the field, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those things activated a change.
Yeah.
And that is
it
powerful.
Rewired their brain.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
And because how hard is it in a lot of ways to change things? It's really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Change a habit, change. I mean, you can work at it. It's slow. In that instance, instant gratification.
Yeah.
And what happens is they're going to want more. They want more of that.
They're
not going back. Right? They're not going to go back to some other world where they're going to go, if there is a job, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to go work at Walmart for $8.50 an hour. Are you kidding me?
No, I agree.
Those days are over for those kids.
I agree with you. And then the other part of this is, so like after the first couple of days of these crazy protest, riot, looting things, right, and the black squares on Instagram, then we start getting all of these notices from all the email lists that we're subscribed to about how, like, so the first one I got was from this food thing that I am subscriber to called The Infatuation, right? And it was cringy. Right. It was cringy. We've realized and reflected that we don't have enough diversity and we don't have enough respect for this and that. It was like super cringy. And then the next one I got was from one of like the techno, sort of collectives that here in Los Angeles that like had really, I've been really dismayed with how their behavior during the COVID thing. And then they do this. But this one was actually like, it felt almost organic and kind of heartfelt. And it was talking, about how, a lot of dance music culture is inner city music, blah, blah, blah. We should show support for. That one it almost didn't make me cringe. I was in a moment of trying to not feel to not lose my humanity. I was like, okay, this one's a little different. And then all of a sudden, a day or two later, literally from every like sort of online magazine or anything that I've ever been subscribed to, practically, I've gotten this notice letting me know how they're changing everything about the way they do everything, and now they're going to focus on Black-owned businesses and supporting Black business and this kind of thing. Like, like I've gotten lists of the 50 Black-owned restaurants and 50 of the top Black mixologists in Los Angeles and blah 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 and all of this stuff. And then I was like, oh, okay, this is really fake and synthetic. Like this is like, you didn't care about like it's literally, you think you're virtue signaling, but what you're really saying here is that I started caring about this on Tuesday, June whatever, right? Like it didn't cross my mind before that, but now because like you get good social points for doing it, now it's like, I mean, everybody is reframing their entire business model, their entire way, all of that kind of crap. And then the icing on the cake came for me the other day, and I like people. I like everyone. If you're a cool person, I like you. I don't care what color you're from, where you're from, any of that kind of stuff. But this was like a bit too far. I get a thing from a website called Culinary Agents that help people find good work in the restaurant industry, right? And obviously people now like who work in the restaurant industry, it's been hard for them because of COVID. People have lost, because of coronavirus, they've lost their jobs. They're trying to re-enter the marketplace. And now they've arranged a workshop with 50 of the top people, Black people in the restaurant industry are going to help you and tell you and show you how to get a job now, right? So it's like this complete reversal where we didn't pay any attention to these people or care, 2 weeks ago, and now we think it's important that they tell you what to do.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
and that's the same thing with these little girls, right? These little girls are now going to be telling the adults what to do.
I mean, I think it's basically a masonically based changing of the guard. I mean, I think that's what's driving what's going on. It's all sort of, alchemical inversion, black, white, duality, polarity. I mean, I think it's really kind of planetary alchemy that's happening at that level. There's another level that's beyond that. Well, maybe not beyond that, but there's a political level to this thing too, which is definitely social Marxist. And that's a really important piece to understand. Right, so everything that we're witnessing now took place already in St. Petersburg in 1917.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We're seeing the exact same
This is Yuri
script
Bezmenov
played out, albeit with slightly different characters. Very similar script. And that script does not end well, let me tell you.
Mm-hmm.
It does not end well. And what happened is that when the communists came here, they thought that they could turn the United States into a class system, right? Like they could make this a class thing. This is so weird. This is so weird. This is so weird. I just gotta tell you, I just saw somebody walk by my window who is like hardly, you would not see this person in Fredericksburg. It was very interesting.
Okay.
Very, very interesting.
Robert has an observer.
No, I'm observing that.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, so he just walked by. He wasn't looking at you. He's just doing his thing, and you're watching him. Okay,
but let me just tell you, this was Fredericksburg is like pretty simple,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yes, it is.
There's like kind of a mold.
I can tell by the way you're acting that this is like somebody painted this character in. It doesn't.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Anyway.
So this goes what we're talking about to like some sort of like, cross-dimensional, right? Like things are coming in from multiple realities. And what does this sort of technology that all this stuff is riding on, like how is that driving it? Like, you know who Kalindi is? Like Kalindi, he just died recently. He supposedly died of COVID, but he's the guy who would do these massive doses of psychedelics, right? Like 30 grams,
right?
Right? He talked about cryptocurrencies as being a psychedelic currency that you could use to, across realities, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly.
All right. Do you want to take a pause for a second?
Yeah, let's put a pause.
All right. Cool. All right. We are back from Robert's little adventure and carrying right along. So I think we were at this place where we were talking about, I had said how, disingenuous the fact that like, if some individual business at any time over any point in time decides that like they've gone, they've missed the ball on something, or that they haven't been, approaching, their societal commitments or their whatever in the way that they think is right, and they choose to make a change in the way they do things based on like deep contemplation and having their own personal come to Jesus moment or whatever, and then they choose to change their mission statement based on that. Cool, everybody's growing and evolving in different ways. But when you have all of these like social media or like even just businesses that rely on social media for their business coming out all at the same time with almost like a approved template letter or notice to, their patrons or their customers or whatever, right? That like suddenly they realize that the whole thing, to me, I find it offensive, and I can't believe. Do you think this is working? Do you think? I don't think Black people are going to buy this. They're not stupid.
I think it's working on some level. I mean, I was just sent a text that Tucker Carlson has advertisers that are leaving the show, like Disney. I mean,
Disney, I saw that. Yeah.
So I think on some level, I mean, it's working. To me, it's equivalent of having the K stamp on your food, right? It's the same thing. I mean, you're basically being kind of pre-qualified. You pay to have your food like deemed quote unquote kosher, or it's okay. You pay for that. That's like a license you have to pay for almost. And the same thing is going on here, and it feels to me like there are very similar parallels now between what's happening with Black Lives Matter and the Holocaust. And to question the Holocaust, that was the sacred cow. You didn't go near the Holocaust. Mm-hmm. You didn't question the numbers. You didn't do any of that. If you did, boom. So now we've got something that's kind of moved ahead of that hierarchically, right? And I'm not saying if you go out and question the Holocaust that's not going to have repercussions, because clearly somewhere down the line it probably will. But this has like come up to another level. Mm-hmm. So now instead of being anti-Semitic, you're racist.
Right.
Instead of questioning the Holocaust, you question Black Lives Matter, you're in deep water. If you don't come right out and have your mission statement be the equivalent of getting on one knee, there are some interesting kinds of things going on here with that kind of psychology. And this is what it feels like. It's like a new version of that in some ways. And I don't know, did the Holocaust lose its juice? I mean, is that what happened? Pun not intended, I'm sorry. You know what I'm talking about. I mean, was that it? Because really, if you think about it, how many people are still around from the Holocaust? They're dwindling down.
Right.
So, now
you always have to have some
psychological replacement model. I mean,
yeah. But some of the weird stuff about this, though, and this goes for both Black Lives Matter and for like Antifa, right? But really more Black Lives Matter. It's like it's an organization, but it's also just like something people say, right? Like you see this like Black Lives Matter tagged everywhere. You see it in, the windows of wealthy white liberals who are professors at Berkeley, whatever. Like people are chanting it when they're walking down the street. And it's also an organization, right? And it's just like, I'm not sure, it's just, and then with Antifa, it's not like this cohesive one thing where you know what it is. Right. And the same with like Antifa, like the whole thing with this Antifa stuff is like, oh, well, you can't declare. I mean, I'm not for government or declaring anything this or that. But like some people think that Antifa is an organized group of domestic terrorists. And other people will say, oh, well, this is just like a loose ideology. It's not centralized. There's no organization. It just means anti-fascist. Like these are, I think, intentionally nebulous in a way that like groups haven't necessarily been so much in the past, right? Is it an idea or is it a thing? Is it a group of people? Is it an organization or is it a religion? Is it a mantra? Is it a saying? Like, what is it?
Yeah, or is it a covert operation run by about 3 or 4 different agencies? I mean, I feel the thing about Antifa.
Well, that's what makes it able to be that, because it's so nebulous, is what, right? Like that, like that's like. Because it's an intelligence operation, the nebulousness of it makes it moldable to whatever they need it to be at any moment.
Well, it's kind of like Hydra in some ways,
Yeah.
The kind of, they're almost like comic book villains, But they've been spending the last. I remember watching a lot of those early Antifa, MAGA Proud Boy scuffles in Berkeley, and for the most part, Antifa got their ass kicked, right? And they've been in training for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And then the Veritas video showed that they've got Krav Maga instructors. Mm-hmm. Krav Maga, we know where Krav Maga comes from. That's like
Israel. Yeah.
Yeah. So these people have been in training for the last 3 years.
It's interesting that Antifa and the cops are being trained in the same way.
Yeah, I know, right? People notice that.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it is kind of bizarre.
I always thought the Black Lives Matter or the BLM thing was pretty weird, was because it popped up right after the whole thing at the Bundy Ranch with the Bureau of Land Management. And it used to be that if you typed in BLM on your search bar, you got the Bureau of Land Management and things popped up about what was going on. And then just a few months later, all of a sudden you have Black Lives Matter. So when you typed in BLM now, you weren't seeing anything about the corruption of the Bureau of Land Management. And it became sort of like, it's in the same way that I like to say Elon Musk co-opted Tesla's name, right? Because now young kids think Tesla is a trendy car. They don't really understand the nature of of who Nikola Tesla was and free energy and whatever and whatnot. And it was like about the same period of time Tesla was becoming popular that this thing happened with BLM, both Bureau of Land Management and Black Lives Matter. And it's when hashtagging was becoming really popular. Right. And so it's kind of like once one thing overtakes another in the hashtag realm, the other almost ceases to exist. Yeah.
And there's this, the connection between BLM and the, Native American culture and Native American land, because BLM and DIA, they all kind of, swarm together out in those spaces as well. So, it also, connects in with an indigenous culture. Mm-hmm. Right. But yeah, hashtag Me Too, and announce hashtag Black Lives Matter. I mean, so yeah, I mean, it is these. It's a socially generated meme that has experienced massive momentum and acceleration based on what happened in Minneapolis. And you and I could spend the next 3 hours talking about Minneapolis.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. That's what's so crazy about this time in general, Robert. Like, you and I could go and pick any one of any videos that are in either of our feeds and do an entire mash about just 2 sentences that were said during that in any given video at this point. Like, that's how much stuff is going into all of this, right? That's how loaded everything is right now.
I mean, the thing to me that really, and I've talked a lot about this already. You can go and catch any of my shows where I get into, the symbolism around Minneapolis. But I popped this up today, and if this does not raise your eyebrow, I just don't know what will.
Yeah, there's lots of stuff. The stuff about Prince is very interesting. The stuff about the Gemini that you've done, and that came up in the conversation I was telling you about.
Can you let me share? I want to share something.
You should be able to. You're on allow record. Let me just make sure that you should be able to, because you're on allow record.
Disabled screen attendee screen sharing.
Okay, hold on a second. Let me see if I can make you able to share. Multiple participants can share advanced sharing options. Oh, you can share. There you go. Okay, there you go.
If this doesn't raise your eyebrow, I don't know what does. Like, this is the guy they arrested.
It's not the same person.
And this is the guy that supposedly was on his neck. Please.
That's like, it's kind of like the Dzhokhar Tsarnaev thing, like the one who was I was talking about this with, I was talking to John Brisson earlier today, right? We were having some of these similar conversations. I'm going to do a show with him next week. But, they have multiples of these people. Remember the Dzhokhar Tsarnaev that was in the courtroom didn't look anything like the Dzhokhar Tsarnaev we'd seen before. This is on that level. The chins are totally different. The noses are totally different.
Like,
I'm
questioning really what happened in Boston now. Like, because when you watch the Boston Marathon, and I stayed up all night and I watched it happen.
That one grabbed me. Some of these don't grab me that much. I was into the Boston Marathon one too. Yeah.
So there was the brother, right?
Mm-hmm.
They paraded the brother naked.
I remember.
But we saw that, and then theoretically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Got shot up and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But do we really know that? I mean, again.
So this is what John and I were talking about earlier, right? So that was the one that grabbed me, because I saw that. I saw them having him in handcuffs, naked, putting him in the car. And then later they're showing us this other video of him dead on the ground, having been run over. Well, which one is it? Is he in police custody, or did his brother run him over with the car? Right?
Yeah.
Both things couldn't be true. So when I was doing deep research on this, I ended up on a message board somewhere. And a guy came in who was talking, and he was there for like a couple of hours over the course of a day or two, and then gone and nothing again. And he was basically explaining to people, because he used to work in black ops or military intelligence, that there's a technique that they use. It's called shadows and echoes, right? And what that is you have whatever you're trying to do, you have like, it's set up in 2 different places, not super far from each other, like maybe a few blocks away, right? Or maybe even on the other side of town per se. And in one setup, you're creating a situation where some of the people, where it's partially controlled, right? You have agitators, you have actors, there's something going on, but there are some natural participants in it. And in the other one, it's completely controlled, right? It's just like a stage set, like a movie set kind of thing, right? There's no people who aren't involved in the situation coming into the setup. And you videotape both of these things, and both things are being fed to the media, right? Like both things are being used to sort of put this event together for public perception. You may have an onlooker who comes upon the one that's totally controlled and sees something, and they'll later tell the media, oh, I saw this, and it's a real person. So there's some level of like organic energy coming from them. But they're letting people who aren't participants integrate into the situation on one and not on the other. And so he said they did that for both the setup, like the car, like that, with him being arrested naked or being run over by the brother. So in one place they did one thing, in one place they did another. They did it for the boat scene at the end where he was, they shot Joe Carsonaia out on the boat in the person's yard, right? If you listen to some of the descriptions from witnesses, they sound like they're describing different things, completely different setups and things happening. It's because it was happening in two different locations. And then it also happened in some of the hospitals where some of these people were supposedly taken to. One was like completely being used as in a drill kind of situation, and others, right, they were mixing it in. And that this is a common technique that they used in black ops, and they all these things had been used in other countries prior to the last 10 or 15 years or whatever, and now they're doing them here.
Yeah.
So shadows and echoes. So that's what that was with the Boston bombing.
That is interesting.
You never heard of that?
We talked about this before. So when I think of that, the events that come to mind for me are like the nightclub in Paris. If that nightclub in Paris,
yep. Mm-hmm.
The Pulse nightclub in
yep.
Florida definitely feels like that.
Yep.
Maybe like Santa Barbara is another event that is so weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just so weird. And theoretically, when you see Elliot Rodger, I mean, it looks like he's a dummy or a mannequin or something. It's just weird.
Yeah, remember that one in Santa Monica at Santa Monica College that happened at about that time too? It was related. It was like a day or two after the thing at that's supposed to be like the gay parade, right?
Yeah.
Remember that one? That was another weird one. So
that was linked up with the Pulse nightclub thing.
Mm-hmm. And then there was the thing in Santa Monica.
They arrested a guy who
Mm-hmm.
turned himself in, and he said that he was tasked to shoot people up.
Yeah.
But he couldn't do it, and he was basically linking himself, and that guy, he went dark real fast.
Well, and remember, just in the same couple of days, there was the thing at that Santa Monica College also, and that one was weird.
I'll tell you another one that was weird was the one in Oregon. Was it Rosemont or something?
At the college, at the community college?
That was so bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
It was so bizarre.
Like there was that same period of time in like the day or two before the one happened at Santa Monica College. So my dad was still working, and my dad was the vice president at East LA College. Like something happened. I don't remember the details now because it was so many years ago. But he ended up making the call to just like close the college down and send everybody home, right? Because there had been some like call that somebody might do something at the college. So he made that decision, or he was involved in that decision. And then like a day or two later, the same thing happened at the Santa Monica College that it was like he was afraid was like that they thought might happen at that East LA College. It was weird, right? Like I was like, what is going on? You know what I mean? Like it was bizarre. And it was in that same period of time as that Rosemont College too. It's like, what do you call it?
I think we just all agree that, our reality's been hijacked.
Yeah.
And it's been hijacked for a long time. And over the last 10 years, post 9/11, it's just been one hijacked event after another to distract us, turn us against one another, flip the paradigm, steal money. I mean, it's just, it really, the Earth plane has really lived up to its definition of Maya, right? The realm of illusion,
Yeah.
People say, in a time when, things were mostly kind of normal, like there was a spiritual version of Maya.
Yeah.
Now we're really living in a very different but very appropriate kind of Maya.
Yeah. We are definitely living in a time of delusion or illusion or something. It's very strange. I mean, it feels like they're sort of like, I'm starting to come up with this idea of like timeline grafting, right? Or like copying and pasting and putting like collages of reality together. And some of the stuff is real and some of the stuff is fake, but they put it together all on the same line of things. And so when you watch it from start to finish, it seems like it would be real, but it's like, it just doesn't make any sense.
It does have a feeling like that. I've got a client who is a very interesting character and was connected to Montauk. The Montauk. Very interesting character. Nice guy, by the way. He told me that he had a direct Mandela experience. Like, he mows his lawn all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And one day he goes out to mow his lawn and there's a sign in the lawn, but it's not new. It has all the markings of an old sign.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, he asked his kids, he asked his wife, none of them remember that sign in their lawn.
Yeah, I had
like a road sign or something, you know, like yield ahead or something like that, you know.
I had a weird one the other day, a weird personal Mandela that got mixed in with some media stuff, so it was very bizarre. So Randy and I just recorded our last show the other day that hasn't come out yet, right? It'll probably be out next week. And in it, we were looking at this video by M83 called Wait from 2012. And we kind of broke down a lot of the symbolism in it and how it sort of largely relates to everything Randy and I have talked about during our period of time together. And there was some rollover from how the video came into our awareness and what was going on in the real world that day and whatever. But when I first watched the video, right, there's a bird in the video and it was a black crow. And I know it was a black crow because it made me think of Crow, 777, right? And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like, he shows up symbolized in that. Then when it came time, so that was like, this happened like 5 or 6 weeks before we actually did the show on it, right? And when Randy sends me the notes for the show, he's not talking about a crow, he's talking about a white vulture. But I know I saw a black crow because I was talking about, oh my God, look at that, there's a black crow there. It's like, right? And when we watched the video together as we're recording the show, it was a white vulture, right? But I'm 100% sure it was a black crow when I first saw it because I was starting to develop some of my theories about the video based on it. Right. So and what I talked about a lot in our breakdown of the show was this overlap between reality and media. It's the place where it's hard to differentiate what is what and what not. Right. But it's weird, man. There's a lot of interesting Mandela effects. There's another one. You were talking about something. Was it you? We talked about the Melinda Gates. Right. But there's somebody else who there was another person's wife that is different all of a sudden. Oh, I can't remember what it is right now, but this shit's happening all over the place. And because there's so much chaos going on, right? Like, a lot of these are slipping under the radar.
Yeah. So people will comment on this, and I'm sure we'll get some really super interesting comments around people having their own versions, their own experiences, you know, and it's good because you realize you're not alone, right?
Yeah.
And this idea of reality is, you know, pretty slippery in a lot of ways. It's just, it's really just.
We wake up in a different world every day.
It's such a trip, you know. I mean, it's really, this place is just such a, and it's getting just trippier every single day. Mm-hmm. Not always in a bad way, by the way. Let me just.
No, I kind of like it.
Let me clarify that, right? Because I had a conversation with another client, good young dude, lives in Oregon. His great uncle actually was the guy who discovered and mapped out Mount Everest. It wasn't George Everest. It was his great uncle who happened to be Indian. But George Everest, you know, did whatever and it became Mount Everest. So we talked about that. We started to get into that. And then that just became like this, like, portal to Tartaria. And it was really, and you know where it all started? This is where it all started. This is interesting. It all started because he went to Phoenix to get some business. He was doing a deal, right?
Yeah.
And for 3 days, he was able to drive a Tesla. Mm-hmm. And that was always one of his, you know, kind of fantasies. You know, bright guy, cares about the earth. You know, he's not an eco-Nazi, but he's, you know, that's his thing. And he said that he felt incredibly sick after driving that Tesla for 3 days.
Oh, that's interesting.
And he couldn't sleep. So then we talked about electricity. And then I started talking about Tesla. We started talking about Tartaria. And then he brought up his great uncle, and boom, we're going down this really interesting path. And so there's a lot of it, you know, it doesn't always, in fact, Jay Widener and I talked about this on the show that debuts in about 28 minutes, actually.
Okay. All right.
And we talked, and you and I were going to talk a little bit about this, and it had to do with this idea that there are immortals on this planet.
Yes.
And Jay and I talked about it, and that's why they're able to do these resets and these scripts, because they've been around for a very, very long time. A very long time, like thousands of years old. And Sonia kind of touched on this a little bit when she was on my show.
Yep.
So I was like relating this to the whole vampire theme, and that the vampire theme is real.
Yeah.
That these people are immortal, and the way that they stay immortal is through blood, right? Blood. That's their thing. And Jay brought up another interesting point, which one that I didn't consider. And he brought up that there are two immortal groups. Has that ever crossed your mind that there are two immortal groups?
Yeah, I think there's multiples. I don't think they're all vampires. I think there's different kinds.
Yeah, so he says that there's another immortal group that has figured out immortality through alchemy.
Yeah.
And energy. They figured this thing out.
Yeah.
And then the other group is connected to this darker version of immortality.
Yes.
And this is where the conversation got interesting. That when we have like positive synchronicities, they're like connected to one group, right? They're connected to the group that theoretically is been around and you may have a little stake in this thing, right? They set things up in a way for us to notice. The dark synchronicities, like the stuff that I've been looking at with like the Twin Cities and Prince and the Purple Revolution, and the twins, right? Like George Floyd and Stephen Jackson is his twin, theoretically, whatever that means, right? That these synchronicities,
yes,
evolve out of this other group. And so it's a really interesting discussion about reality and how we evolve and how we live our lives. I think it's really interesting.
This actually goes a lot to things I've talked about with Sonia, to things I'm talking about in the series I've been doing with Michael Wan, because we're sort of going into sort of like the realm of like where reality and sort of imagination kind of crosses over, that sort of mystical space, right? And paying attention to the synchronicities in your life and which ones you're sort of going to use as like, they can be like beacons, like markers, right? Kind of thing. And it can be either way. And it's like, which one is going to grab you? Which one are you sort of more, attracted to or influenced by, or which one is going to get its hooks into, if it's the dark one, if it's going to get its hooks into you. No, I think there's, I don't think that, I think it's entirely possible there's just two, but it's entirely possible there's multiple, various kinds of groups. There's various ways of achieving eternity or immortality or, that kind of thing. I think a lot of it can be through alchemy, which could include things like diet and energy work and things like that. I think it can be through things like adrenochrome and blood. I think there's probably other ways to do it as well. I think there's probably one for each different kind of element on a certain level, right? Like, some different kind of process or procedure that can be used, right? And I'm sure there's people who are trying to do it technologically too and are probably succeeding. Like, I'd say that some of this stuff with applications and algorithms and cryptocurrencies and whatever is like a digitalized version of alchemy, or of, sort of sinking the hooks in and extracting energy, psychic vampirism or energetic vampirism. I think there's all sorts of shit going on.
Yeah, I would totally agree.
I like it though. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, no, it was definitely so I wanted to also bring this up too. This stuff has always fascinated me, and since we're in Gemini, this stuff is always like really, really grabbed my attention.
Oh, I love this shit. And I know you love it too. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. You're good at this. You like it a lot too. Where's the one that looks like you? I remember the one that looked like you was really good.
So, some of this stuff is really mind blowing.
Yeah.
Like the Nicolas Cage thing, pretty mind blowing. The balloon thing, pretty mind-blowing.
Yep. They're all pretty. These are all actually pretty good.
The Jimmy Fallon one is nuts.
Yeah. So, yeah. The Leonardo DiCaprio one. I mean, these are all.
DiCaprio is a girl here. That's Judy Zipper.
I'd say that Leonardo DiCaprio looks like a girl in that picture too. I mean, that who he looks like there. What's that actress's name? She was on Orange is the New Black for a bit. It's like Ruby something or other. You and I think, talked about her once. Did we talk about her, or did I talk about her with someone else? She was very androgynous. I can't remember what her name is. Oh, but that's who he looks like in that picture. These are all pretty good. The Christina Aguilera. I mean, these are all pretty good. You love that. You always find. Remember that one you showed me of you? Your one with Jordan Peterson. Yeah, the Jordan Peterson one is good too. I think my Rudolph Steiner catch one was really good. My John Rappaport is Rudolph Steiner.
I thought that was good too. Yeah.
Yeah. Where's the one that's you, Robert?
Oh, let me see if I can find it.
That's my favorite. That one was like it was scary good. You know.
Let me see if I can find it.
There's that one of like Jay-Z. You ever see the one of Jay-Z? That one was pretty good too.
Oh, the Jay-Z one is, yeah, that's a famous one.
Yeah, that one's good.
I think I have it on my desktop actually.
All right. I remember when you shared that one. Yeah, I was like, holy shit, dude, that's. So people who are listening, if you guys know of some other, me and Robert do like these. We like to theorize, and I heard your theory the other day that Christine Blasey Ford is Brett Kavanaugh.
Well, I mean, when you look at them, I mean, come on.
It sounds like the drag show at Bohemian Grove, right? Don't they do that?
It totally does, and it seems like it would just be like okay, here's your initiation. You want to be
a judge,
or justice. You basically show up in drag.
It could be, dude. It was definitely. I mean, he definitely got mocked and humiliated.
Yeah, I can't find it right now.
All right, another time.
Next time I'll have it. It's really weird.
It's really weird. I haven't seen one like me yet, although I think there's a few people that are like modern that people have told me over the years I look like, and I think I've even talked about it before. So I've been told I look like Amy Winehouse. I've been told I look like Ani DeFranco, and I've been told I look like the tennis player Francesca Schiavone, who won the French Open years back, and they all sort of do look like variations of me, and we have a couple of similarities. It's kind of interesting. So I don't know if there's like pods or clusters of people or whatever. That one doesn't look like you, Robert. I'm sorry.
That's not okay. So that's not even a human.
It doesn't look human.
That is actually a latex overlay.
Wow. Who is that?
I don't know. It's a latex. So I was researching these rubberized masks and stuff the other night, and the realism of some of these masks will blow your mind. I'll show you another one.
Well, this goes to Westworld as well, right? They were like machinery with skin suits on. Yeah,
but that's not a human.
Yeah. Watch what Dolores does in Westworld when she like puts her arms back on over the machines and peels. I do think that this has gone to my theory for a long time about Westworld and Burning Man, and the fact that there's things that we're dealing with that aren't human that are being sent out to interact, right? And this whole period of time of mask wearing, whether we're wearing masks for a false virus or we're wearing masks to cover our face because we're in Black Bloc or Antifa or whatever, people have masks on, and it makes it a lot easier to pass something off into a group that isn't like the others.
Let me show you another one. I mean, the realism on this stuff is mind-blowing. Check this out.
Well, that one's weird because it looks not human and androgynous. You can't even tell anything about what's going on.
Yeah, I know, right?
That was crazy.
Because I was looking at some of the George Floyd stuff, and there are times when the bead on the ground does not look like a real human.
Huh? I've not seen the video.
And the way that they move him to the gurney is like, are you kidding me? This guy's 6'6", 240, and he supposedly has died. I mean, you don't move a being like that easily. It just does not happen. It doesn't happen. So I've been looking at various kinds of angles to try to do the math on this thing.
I saw you had like a clip from like something that happened before he actually was on the ground the other day. I saw him like you having a video of him scuffling with police.
Yeah. So now
it came from a different angle. Yeah.
Yeah. So now they're asking the Minneapolis PD chief to release the rest of the footage. Because we haven't seen all the footage.
No, we never see all the footage.
And the Minneapolis PD has pushed it back to the FBI. Well, why should the FBI be in charge of it? Like, that's like, FBI is federal, right? It's a federal Bureau of Investigation. It's not a federal crime, right? And it's a crime. And by the way, have you seen like the artist renderings of like Derek Chauvin being arraigned?
No.
Minneapolis.
Oh, is that the one with the mask? Was he wearing a mask when he was arraigned?
It's a drawing. He's like,
yeah.
It's so bizarre. He's like in an isolated chamber somewhere, and he's got to wear a mask. It's just, the whole thing is just, it's like surreal opera.
Well, they only do the artist rendering when they don't have the real person in the courtroom. They do the same.
Well, apparently
Minnesota's
one of those states where you can't use cameras. Apparently.
That's awfully convenient.
It's a pretty convenient kind of thing.
Right, we have cameras everywhere else. Like we have basically cameras on anal probes watching us when we go to the bathroom and whatnot, but we can't have cameras in the courtroom, right? When the whole world is being, affected by what's going on here and we can't see what's going on in the courtroom.
Yeah, that really flipped me out about the whole shootout at the Walmart in El Paso.
What happened there?
This guy from Dallas supposedly didn't like Mexicans.
Mm-hmm.
He decided to drive all the way down to Dallas, to El Paso, to a Walmart in El Paso, and go kill Mexicans. And that's where, what's his name? The giant elf, Bobby, what's, I'm talking about. Ran for president.
What's his name? Beto O'Rourke.
Beto, yeah, Mr. Hands. That's his area. That's his territory, right?
Yeah.
So why did the guy have to go all the way to Dallas? And by the way, he was part Mexican. Go figure that. That's like the weird.
Right. Yeah, it was like that.
Why would he hate Mexicans? Number one. Why would he go to Why would he go to El Paso? Plenty of places in Dallas who want to do that.
Right.
Then he goes to Dallas and he goes to the Walmart and we get no footage. Are you fucking kidding me? Walmart has cameras everywhere.
They have cameras on every single soda can that you buy. There's like an RFID chip and a camera on it.
Walmart scans how much money you have in your wallet.
Yep.
When you walk through.
Yep.
That is a fact.
Yep.
And all we get is some blurry ass 1970s surveillance cam. Oh.
Yeah. Right. Everybody has 6 high definition cameras on their phone, but they can't give us more than a grainy, circuit, kind of, frame by frame kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Everything is bullshit. They're just copy and pasting and stitching reality together.
Yeah, that helps perpetuate whatever interpretation of reality that they're peddling.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Robert, I think we've mashed enough Matrix. We haven't even dented it, but I think we've done I think this is a pretty long one. So
yeah, I don't know what's going on with me, man. I've been doing these long marathon kinds of.
I can't keep up with you. I can't my media consumption has shrunk dramatically over the last several years. But sometimes I'm watching Robert Phoenix. The only media I watch all week is Robert Phoenix, but I still haven't even gotten through half of his shit. Right? Like it takes me 2 or 3 days sometimes to finish watching one, and then I'm behind on the other. So I'll be in the chat room on the one that's happening now, listening to the one that happened the other day.
There's just so much meat on the bones these days. I mean, it's crazy.
It's a beef rib. It's not a pork rib right now. Yeah.
Yeah, total. I mean, it's like today I wanted to do my show for maybe an hour and 15 minutes, and I was 2 hours into this thing because there was so much to cover, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's such a fast-moving river now. So.
Yeah, it is a fast-moving river. There's tons of stuff on it. It's just, like I said, we could talk for hours about 3 sentences that somebody says on another video, So, all right, well, we'll be back hopefully sooner than we were this time to mash some more Matrix next time, and maybe we'll be on to whatever the next series of distractions or events or whatever. I don't even know what to call this fucking shit anymore. Robert, buddy, you guys can find him at robertphoenix.com, 15 Minutes of Flame, Friday Farcast, Sunday night Astro live stream. You're all over the place, like 50 hours of media a week. You can find me at Off Planet Media and here on the Emily Moyer YouTube channel. And we will see you guys next time. Ciao. Say goodbye, Robert.